Spreadsheets are a wonderful way to collect a lot of data and information, and most likely you're using Google Forms to collect it. So another application that we can do here is actually take this form data and do something more with it in a pretty simple way. And what I'm going to be looking at here now is going to be peer reviewing using a rubric. So maybe students have a rubric or a grading guide, and you want them to peer review their work. A lot of times with rubrics, it's going to be closed-ended. They have certain scores that they might receive for each rubric item. And then what you can do is put it together and make a grade. Illuminate is our testing software that we can use for our assessments. We can have paper assessments, we can do digital assessments with them. And what's really, really cool is if you make something that's closed-ended enough, where it's A, B, C, or D, or a number value on a rubric, you could actually bring that information into Illuminate and actually use more advanced ways to look at your information, student performance, and whatever else it might be. So to get started here, I actually have two tabs that are open. The first tab is what you're looking at right now in your sample workbook, and that is just simply looking at a Google form. In this case, in this Google form that you see here, there's a timestamp of when the form was submitted. In this case, hypothetically, I asked students to peer review work, and I asked them to type in the ID number of the student they were evaluating. And then I had a total of 6 questions that were either 0 or 1, or 0, 1, and 2 points. And I asked students to give them a number score based on the rubric and how we've talked about things in class. So in this case, this student hypothetically got a rubric score of 2. They got 1 point on point of view, 1 on evidence, but nothing else. For our purposes, I just randomized numbers. This isn't real. I just made it up. But this could be form data that I can use. In Illuminate, if you go in, you can actually create an answer key. And when you create an answer key, what you can choose to do is make it A, B, C, or D, or you can also choose to make it a rubric. And so when you make it a rubric, you can make something worth 1 point or 2 points, and then of course any possibility therein. So in the case of a 1-point rubric, they can score a 0 or a 1. In a 2-point rubric, a 0, a 1, or a 2. And as you see here, there's 6 questions with a point value, and I matched that up in the form that I made for the students. And they had a choice of 0 or 1, 0, 1, or 2. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to download this sheet as a CSV, or a comma-separated value. And if you watch the calendar one, a comma-separated value is basically, instead of having columns, there's just commas that separate the data, and the computer knows what to do. So I've downloaded it. That's wonderful. I'm going to go on over to Illuminate, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to administer my assessment. And many times you would have answer sheets you would grade with a camera. In some cases, you're going to have students take online testing because there's a kiosk mode where students can take a test online. What I'm going to choose to do is import. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that CSV file. I'm going to tell the computer that the comma is going to separate out my values. I'm going to choose which responses, and so I'm going to take the newest download that I've made. And just make sure that says Illuminate. Yep. And I'll hit open. And I'll select upload. Now it's going to ask me a couple more questions. Which column is the student ID? Well, in my Google form, I made a question called student ID. You can select a date if you want, or just use the default. I'll just use the default. And then it's going to ask which question has the first answer. In this case, it's the thesis. I deliberately made all the rubric questions together in a line, and what's going to happen is the computer will read that CSV and kick it on down the line and do it. Once it's set up, I just hit import. It says it's going to take a moment to do, but if I go back to overview, I'll see now that my 50 scores are in. Now, as you see here, it gives you that little donut, and it talks about the grading, whatever else. I don't really care about the percentages because this is a rubric. A 3 out of 6 maybe wouldn't be good if it was a 6-point assignment, but maybe with a rubric grade, it grades a little bit differently. But what's really, really nice now is I can actually look at information by how students did on each of the items on the rubric. I could filter this by my class periods. Maybe I want to look at period 2 and period 3. Maybe I did something different. Maybe I want to filter out certain cohorts or groups of students and see how they're performing. And Illuminate allows me to do a lot of these really neat things. And all I simply have to do is just set up my Google form the right way, and I can bring in that data nice and clean and nice and simple. So that is how you would do it. Thanks for watching.